let's get right into this trial update, man. Wow. It feel like if you just look at, action, it's been a slow week, but it's not really a slow week though. If you have been hearing the stories that are being told, pretty much this week has been all about the same incident, right? So essentially they started the week out with us hearing a 911 phone call from some unknown person. We don't know who the person is because the person called and said, do not give them my identity. I don't want to give y'all my identity. I'm not giving you my name. I'm not telling you where I live. I'm not telling you anything. I just know that y'all need to come here and help my neighbor out ASAP. So a lady is on the phone pretty much telling the police, hey, I don't have an emergency. All I know is somebody just walked into my neighbor's apartment and they won't get out. And my neighbor just came and told me that Young Thug is in her apartment and he just shot somebody or he just got shot, whatever it was, the lady didn't know exactly why the person was in the apartment, didn't know exactly who it was, but she know that her neighbor told her it was Young Thug, right? So this was not played in front of the jury. This was played because the defense is saying, Your Honor, we objected as being played in court. This should be inadmissible. Please throw this out right now. And the reason Brian Steele said it should be inadmissible is because he's saying that pretty much with the caller being anonymous and the caller not showing up to court to even corroborate what they said on that phone call or give more information as to what was going on in that instance, it's essentially not giving a defendant a chance to face their accuser. Essentially meaning you have to come in court and say that again. If not, it's kind of unfair for it to be used, for your words that were said somewhere else to be used in a trial against a defendant, right? And it's especially heinous when, as the judge said, there's been no foundation laid for them to play anything like that, right? So Brian Steele and his team, they gave multiple reasons as to why this shouldn't be played. But the main one being that we don't know who this is. We don't have any way to verify anything this person was saying. And it's not so third party would be the person calling didn't even witness anything going on. Somebody told them something and then they called the police and tried to repeat what the person told them, allegedly. So the information in a phone call itself is not even strong enough for them I don't think it should be strong enough for them to be able to use it. It's not evidence of anything. And allowing a jury to hear something like that will confuse them, I think. And when I say confuse them, I mean it'll make the jury think Young Thug was definitely at the scene of this crime and he definitely got away and he definitely ran to these people's apartment to hide. Even if that's not what happened. This Young Thug running in this apartment could be completely unrelated to this incident that we've been talking about. But because we don't have that person here to explain what they're saying, they don't even know who the neighbor is. The neighbor's not coming to testify. The neighbor who supposedly Young Thug ran in their house, that person's not coming to testify. And the lady who called the police is not coming to testify. So the state is trying to use this phone call from unknown source as evidence of something. I'm actually confused as to which witness they were planning on playing that phone call in front of. Because maybe they were going to have the 911 operator come and say, hey, remember hearing this phone call? What was going on when this phone call was happening? That's the only thing I could think. I can't imagine anybody else would be an appropriate witness for that phone call to even be played for. So essentially, Brian Steele is saying, like, Judge, you can't allow this. This is not right. He was citing different cases and stuff like that. And pretty much and of course the judge gave attorney Adrienne Love a chance to rebut it by saying why she believes it should be able to be played. And was it Love or was it Hilton? I think it was Love. They were saying why they think it should be played. It was definitely Love. And she was saying that pretty much, she was saying that it should fall under pretty much, there was some exempt rule that they used. And the person should be, that call should be valid because the lady was calling. And even though the lady literally said out of her mouth, the one calling said, this is not an emergency. But Attorney Love is saying that this was an emergency. There was excitation in her voice. She was panicking. She was trying to get help because there was an urgent matter going on at that time. And she was calling. So this qualifies as what we should be able to use in trial. because of the nature of that phone call. The judge is saying, nah, I don't really agree with that. Like, she doesn't sound like she's panicking at all. She just sounds like she's trying to get her information out and remain anonymous, which is what she was doing. Again, she also said it was an emergency. The judge is saying, I can't just take your word for what she said or your interpretation of what she said, Miss Love. I have to take her words at face value because literally nothing is happening for me not to take her at face value. So, but then it's funny because then the judge didn't say, I'm going to make this inadmissible. He said that he agreed pretty much with Brian Steele, but he's saying, but I'll hold out on making a ruling on that until I hear more information. And I'm just like, see, this is what I mean about the judge being biased in this situation. Hold on. The judge being biased in this situation, because why are you not ruling on that right now when you just said you agree with Brian Steele that this is hearsay at best. This is really almost irrelevant to this whole case, even with them having this incident that happened. Okay, so they started the week out arguing about that. And the judge said, give me some time. I'll rule on it when it's time for you to use this tape, this recording, and we'll figure it out. Pretty much the judge is, again, giving the state a chance to, get their ducks in a row to make some strange evidence relevant in this case. And everybody could see that. That's not me leaning towards Brian Steele or Young Thug's side. I'm just saying the judge has clearly been doing stuff like that with this halfway evidence that the state is trying to use. So that happens, and then let me look and see who they. Okay, again, they were off on Monday. They came in on Tuesday, and they talked about that. So then let me look. I'm looking at my notes right now. Okay. So here we go. Okay, so sorry, I had to look at I got notes up on the TV now, so I can try to keep up with what's going on in my head. So pretty much the testimonies start out with a police officer who responded to an event on September 2013. It was a day in September 2013, right? Now, this day. There's many different parts to this day. And when I say this day, I mean the events that happened that are related to this crime that they're talking about in this week, right? So pretty much they start out the week with a police officer who said he was in the Cleveland Avenue area. And then, he had been talking to somebody in the neighborhood, and it was nothing. He just talking to him because he was a cop and speaking to the people of the citizens, right? So then he went back to the station, and then they got a call over the radio that there was some shooting, and the suspect was told to everybody, and he said, hey, I was just talking to him. I just saw him. So let me go. I'll go back down there and find him because I just saw him. So they pull up to these apartments, and the cop says his name is Robinson L. So the police officer says, I see two men coming from behind an apartment, and one of them is shooting. And I see him shooting. I see two men, and there's one with the red shirt, and one of them is shooting. Okay. And I see him shooting as I'm looking at the situation. Of course, this is the state's witness. So as he's talking to the state right now. They're asking him questions, and he's saying what he saw. Right. So he's like, yeah, they're coming from around the apartment. And then, I see him shooting. So I hop out and I try to tell him whatever. A few minutes later, during the same testimony, he's talking to the state again. He says, I'm talking about literally minutes apart. He says, well, actually, I didn't see him shooting. I know that they were shooting because I heard it. And then as they got closer, I saw the man with the gun. I'm talking about, he literally said that like minutes apart. First, he said, I saw the guy shooting as they were coming out. And then he said, I didn't see shooting. As they got closer to me, I saw the one with the gun. I mean, when we talk about that first person that they had testify, the cop, Robinson L., we need to lock in the memory everything he says, because everything else that happens after this situation is pretty much in relation to what this man said. And we'll get back to that, right? So he says, I didn't see him shooting, but he was getting closer to me, and then I saw a gun, so I know he had a gun. So then, whatever, I'm out with my gun. I try to tell him to stop, but I didn't realize that the car that they were running to was actually the car that I was standing right next to. It was a red car. So I'm saying stop. They're looking at me in the eyes, ignoring me though. They get in the car. And then as I'm standing there, they try to like drive away from us because he was in a car with a couple other people. They try to drive away from us. And the people that the Robeson L says the people I was with tried to run in front of them and cut them off. The red car hits the police car and then drives off past. And the cop says, as soon as they hit our cop car, I start shooting at them. Right. And sorry, I'm being so animated because I'm trying to refresh my memory as I'm speaking. So he pretty much says they hit the police car with their car. And as they're trying to get away, then I start shooting into the car. Right. So they ask him, like, how close were you to the car? He's like, I'm like kind of in the front, about maybe 5 to 10 feet from where the car is at. He said, I'm pretty much right up on the bumper. So he was right in front of the car and started shooting into the car. Right. They asked him, how many times did you shoot? He's like, I really don't remember. I just know I shot. So he pretty much saying, like, I know I shot at least one time. Clearly, he shot multiple times, but we find that out later. But anyway, so he's like, I just know I shot one time. I don't know. And then they drove off. And then he's like, I was outside the vehicle, outside the cop car. So as the red car with the suspects in it, as they drive away, our cop car, which is an unmarked car, like a blue Taurus or whatever, our cop car follows after that vehicle and pretty much left him there, pretty much at the scene of where the shooting happened. Right. So then he says, like, yeah, I saw them go off. And then like the car kind of just like disappeared out of my sight. And I don't know what happened to it. And then I seen the police car kind of follow him. And then so he pretty much is saying, like, then once they drove off or whatever, then he walked over to where everything had happened at. And listen, this scenario, this thing that happened is a very traumatic situation for everybody that was involved. And we're going to go through it and we're going to talk about why it was traumatic for everybody involved. Right. Okay. So the cop just said, I just shot into the car and all that. And then essentially they kind of fast forward because he wasn't really involved because he had been left back at the apartment complex. He got back involved later on and they pretty much said, like, now investigators are there and they're trying to figure out what happened. And because I guess anytime in Atlanta, and I don't know if other jurisdictions do this, but in Fulton County and Atlanta PD, when there's a police involved shooting, which either police shoot somebody or somebody shoot the police, but mostly I guess when the police shoot at somebody, the homicide detectives come. Even though nobody was killed, I guess homicide is the ones who investigate and make sure the police officer didn't commit a crime when he shot at whoever he shot at or when he shot somebody, right? I thought that was pretty interesting, but maybe homicide has the best detectives in it, so maybe they want only the best of the best investigating it, I guess. I don't know, but I thought it was interesting. Okay, so, you know, they move forward. They say, hey, they kind of quarantine me off to the side and like ask me questions about myself. They separated me from the people I came with because when there's an officer involved shooting, they separate everybody and then they ask questions. I guess that's also a good tactic because you want to make sure they're not coming together, huddling up saying, let's get our story straight type of thing. So they did it. They did what they could right there. Okay, so essentially his testimony is what it is. And then, of course, like I said, the witness killer, Keith Adams, comes up there and does what he does pretty much. Now, this is why I say Robertson L's testimony is so important. Keith Adams comes up there and it sounds to me like Keith Adams is trying to paint a picture of this cop did something dirty that day. I don't know if Keith Adams has some type of inside information. I don't know if one of the defendants told him what happened and said, hey, question him like this because we didn't do what he said we did. He started shooting at us for no reason. The way Keith Adams is questioning this cop, it's like he knows that the cop started shooting at them and because he just felt like starting to shoot at them because it seems like it didn't happen in the order that police officer says it happened in. So Keith Adams comes up, he's asking him like, so where you say you were standing at when this happened? He's like, he said where he's standing. He's like, so you said that when you hopped out of the vehicle, when you hopped out of the police car, the unmarked car, you said it was still kind of rolling a little bit, like the car was in motion when you hopped out. He was like, yeah. He's like, so when you seen, so pretty much, and if you're watching this, you've probably seen it. Pretty much Keith Adams is setting the stage that the way the detective L is telling this story, it didn't happen in that order. So he's setting the stage to say this cop is lying. I guess he just wants the jury to understand that this man is lying about his story so that they don't deem him as credible. Because even after watching him and then seeing the people come, other cops that were there at the scene tell the same story, it looks like Robinson L. I'm sorry I keep on saying, I don't remember if it was Roberson or Robinson. It sounds like he's lying. And it sounds like the reason he lied is because he shot people and he had to protect himself from criminal charges as a police officer because he was investigated. So, and Keith Adams seems like he has some information. To me, that's what it looks like. Seems like he knows something about this scenario. So then, okay, we get him out of there. Then the next person they bring in, which I think it was very interesting that the order at which they brought in people to testify about this incident, because to me, it looks like the state is trying to have this whole story be jumbled up so that the jury doesn't remember anything but the major pieces. There was a shooting, there was a car crash, and some people were hurt, and we arrested 4 men. One of them had long hair. One of them was heavy set. Like it seems like they only want people to, they want the jury to only remember the big pieces because they're interviewing, they're direct examining people, not in the order that everything happened in. So they brought the police officer in that did the shooting. And then after that, they bring in one of the police officers that saw the car crash. And then after that, they bring in the man whose car it was, the red car, whose car it was that was stolen. And then they bring in one of the other police officers that was with the lady who saw the crash. It's all over the place. And I think they're doing that deliberately. I don't know. Of course, they have to go by when witnesses are available. But we talking about a day apart. So to me, it looks like they're jumbling it up for a reason. Okay. I think they're jumbling it up this way because they don't want, if a jury can sit there and put everything together in order because they heard it all in order, I think they'll get the idea that the way that the police officers are telling the story does not make sense as to what happened. I don't know. That's just me. I can't tell, but it is definitely strange, right? So then they get the young lady officer in who's not even an officer anymore. She was brand new when this situation happened. She said she had been on the force about 6 months. She was actually training. She was in the car with the person that was training her on the job, right? So it pretty much comes into the story at a car flew over her head. So she was in a parking lot at a laundromat and they were up against a retaining wall, and that retaining wall has land in a house above it. You know, if you know what a retaining wall is, so it's about probably 7 to 8 foot retaining wall. And then there's a house up at the top, and they're in a commercial parking lot at a laundromat. She says a car comes flying over top of their police car. It lands and then it crashes into the building.